Beneath a peaceful American town, there was a hidden cult, where over 600 children were abused for years. And politicians, businessmen, and law enforcement protected them. This wasn't just a crime, it was the darkest face of the system. When Mike King began investigating, one question arose: would justice ever be served? It was the year 1991. In the small town of Ogden, Utah, everything seemed normal. School buses ran on time every day. The church was full every Sunday. And locals were busy with their everyday lives. But one day, a young mother walked into the police station. There was fear in her eyes. And in her hands, only a small diary. The diary said that some people were sexually abusing her children. And those people were part of a secret religious group. Initially, the police dismissed it as a family dispute. But when they checked the names mentioned in the diary, some of them turned out to be local politicians and businessmen. The case was assigned to Mike King. Mike was a seasoned detective. But what he discovered was about to change his entire career. The investigation began, and every witness had something different to say. Some said the group took children into separate rooms under the name of religious rituals. Some said they were given drugs. And some said they were recording the children. This group called itself the Zion Society, a religious cult that stayed isolated from outsiders. Every member was cut off from their family and blindly followed every order from their leaders. The cult's head was Arvin Shreve, an elderly man who was once a local businessman. He convinced people that he was God's chosen prophet, and that only his guidance could save their souls. In the beginning, people were only given spiritual lectures. Then they were slowly isolated from their families, and their children were brought into the cult compound. When Mike King planned a raid on the cult compound, he first conducted 3 months of undercover investigation. He checked local school records, pulled missing children reports, and mapped out the hidden rooms around the compound. When the day of the raid finally came, dozens of officers were ready. And when the gate was broken open, the scene inside was nothing short of a nightmare. There were dozens of children locked in rooms, some as young as 3 or 4 years old. Religious slogans were written on the walls. And in a secret basement, hundreds of VHS tapes were found. Each tape contained recordings of abuse. And some tapes clearly showed the faces of cult leaders and local businessmen. The officers were stunned. This wasn't just a cult. It was an organized child abuse network. But when the tapes were presented in court, a shocking twist surfaced. Some tapes had mysteriously gone missing, and some of the accused suddenly disappeared. Mike King realized that there were even more powerful people behind the cult. People sitting inside the system who were hiding the evidence. The survivor children were taken into protective custody, but their statements were contradictory because they had been manipulated for years. They had been brainwashed and taught that the outside world was evil. Some children said their parents were involved, and some said their parents were already dead. When the public learned about this, Utah's peaceful image was shattered. The media called it America's darkest cult. And the FBI also launched a parallel investigation. Mike King was now under double pressure. On one side, justice for the victims. And on the other, fighting those who wanted to bury the truth. As the investigation went deeper, Mike King found a pattern. Some cult members were receiving regular donations, and those donations were traced back through local banks. These banks were controlled by politically connected people who publicly presented themselves as religious and clean, but were secretly funding the cult. Mike King decided to expose these people by name, but as soon as he drafted his report, 2 of his investigators suddenly resigned. and one had a mysterious car accident. Now Mike was alone, and he realized this wasn't just a case. It was a war against the system itself. That night, Mike King wrote in his personal journal, "If I fail, thinking about what this system will do to these children terrifies me." This line became a turning point for him, and he decided that no matter what, he would see this investigation through to the end. This was just the beginning. And now this case was about to become the most controversial scandal in the United States legal system. When Mike King submitted his final report to the court, he clearly wrote that over 600 children were sexually abused in the Zion Society cult, and that some influential people were indirectly involved. As soon as the report was filed, the media made it a headline: "Child Sex Cult Uncovered in Utah." But as the coverage grew, unexpected resistance began. The district attorney's office suddenly told Mike to remove certain names from the report because there was insufficient evidence. Mike was shocked because he had videotapes, witness statements, and a full financial trail. But the DA said, "If we file charges against political figures, the entire case will collapse." Despite this pressure, Mike secretly contacted the FBI. The FBI initially showed interest, but later put the case on the back seat, calling it low priority. Mike began to feel that some people were deliberately slowing the investigation, trying to run down the clock so the evidence would go cold. When the court trial finally began, 9 core members of the cult were presented, including the head Arvin Shreve. The courtroom was packed. Dozens of journalists. And in the back rows, some unknown men in dark suits, staring intensely at every witness. The survivor children had to testify. But as soon as the first child took the witness stand, he only said, "I don't remember anything." Mike was stunned, because that child had previously given a clear statement. But now he was completely blank. Later it was discovered that the witness children had been taken to an unknown therapist, and their statements had mysteriously changed. This was the first major crack in the case, and the defense lawyers took full advantage of it. The trial continued. The media called the cult a brainwashing sex ring. But suddenly, some TV channels removed their stories, and anchors began saying, "This is just an exaggerated rumor." The public became confused. Some people said Mike was a hero, and others said he was just chasing fame. When the prosecution presented the tapes in court, some of them turned out blank, and some were corrupted. Only a few were usable. But even in those, the suspects' faces were blurred. The court said, "This is not conclusive evidence." Mike tried to build pressure through the media. He gave a national interview, where he said, "If the system doesn't deliver justice, I will make all the files public." The very next day, his office computer was hacked, and multiple case files were deleted. The IT report said it was a highly professional hack that could only be done through a government-level system. Now Mike was officially placed under a gag order. He was forbidden from sharing case details with the media. This was the point where he felt that he had now been legally cornered as well. During this time, some cult members started mysteriously disappearing. One witness said he saw 2 suspects crossing into Mexico, and one was allegedly seen in Canada. But there was no official record. Passport logs were clean, as if someone was erasing their existence. One day Mike received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a note. "If you want the truth, watch this." The flash drive contained blueprints of hidden tunnels under the cult compound, and the location of a secret room that had been missed during the raid. Mike secretly went there. And when he broke the gate, he found dozens of children's clothes and a diary containing daily abuse logs. This diary confirmed that the abuse was systematic, and everything was done on a schedule. Mike handed the diary to the FBI, but the FBI said, "This diary is not legally admissible," because the chain of custody had not been followed. Mike felt that every new piece of evidence was being rejected for one reason or another. At this point, public outrage was at its peak. Hundreds of people were protesting in Salt Lake City, holding placards reading "Justice for the Children." And on social media the hashtag was trending, #ZionJustice. But politicians said at a press conference, "The investigation is exaggerated, the media created panic." The cult's lawyers argued that all these allegations were fabricated, and that Mike was acting on a personal vendetta. They attacked Mike's personal life, leaked his family photos to the media, and portrayed him as mentally unstable. Mike received a suspension notice. The police department said, "Until the internal inquiry is over, Mike will not be on active duty." He was now officially removed from the case, and his access to all files was revoked. The case he had spent years building was crumbling before his eyes. Out of the 9 cult members, only 3 received minimal sentences, and the rest were released due to lack of evidence. As he walked out of the courtroom, a reporter asked Mike, "Do you think justice was served?" Mike only said, "No, justice was buried." That day Mike decided, if the system won't show the truth, then he will show it himself. And this decision was about to become the most dangerous step of his life. Mike King officially surrendered his police badge and secretly started a personal investigation. He was no longer part of law enforcement, so he wasn't bound by departmental restrictions anymore. He decided that he would retrace all the missing documents, tapes, and financial trails, and release them to the public. Mike contacted some of his old journalist contacts, including a senior reporter, Linda Ray, who had previously covered the cult for the Salt Lake Tribune. Linda said, "If you have real proof, I can take your expose to a national level." But she also warned Mike, "The moment you expose big names, the system will turn against you." Mike began gathering every shred of evidence again. Archive records from local banks, property deeds of cult members, and blueprints of the underground tunnels. He even traced the names of anonymous donors, which included family foundations of some politicians who publicly supported child welfare organizations, but were secretly funding the Zion Society cult. One night Mike and Linda secretly went to the outskirts of Salt Lake City, where there was an abandoned warehouse once used by the cult. There they found a hidden vault. Inside were old VHS tapes, Polaroid photos, and written manuals of cult rituals. Linda immediately photographed everything, and Mike secured the originals. But on their way back, Linda's car brakes failed, and she narrowly survived a crash. The mechanic's report said the brake line had been deliberately cut. Mike realized someone was watching their every move. Still, they continued preparing the expose. Mike created a timeline of every victim child, when they entered the cult, how their parents were manipulated, and when they were made to disappear. The timeline was shocking. Over 600 children, and 112 were still missing, with no official trace of them. Linda tried to get the expose published through the investigative desk at the Washington Post. They initially showed interest, but when they saw the names involved, they suddenly refused. They said this could trigger defamation lawsuits. Mike made a last resort decision: to leak all the files on the internet. He set up a hidden server and built an evidence archive. As soon as the files went live, thousands of people downloaded them, and the hashtag Zion files started trending. But just 24 hours later, the site was suddenly shut down. The server was seized, and Mike received a federal warrant for releasing classified evidence. Mike was now wanted again, and Linda also received a legal notice. The public was shocked. Some said Mike was a hero, and others said he was spreading a fabricated conspiracy. National news channels gave mixed coverage. Some called him a whistleblower, and some mocked him as a disgraced ex-detective. Mike then recorded one final video message. He said, "If I disappear, know that I wasn't lying." He copied the video to a USB drive and gave it to his lawyer, and then disappeared. No one saw Mike again after that. His phone was never traced. His credit cards were never used. His passport was never scanned. Only one mention of him surfaced in a guest log at a motel in Montana. 2 days later, the motel's entire CCTV system was mysteriously wiped. Linda Ray continued the fight after that. She recorded interviews with survivor children and made a documentary, Children of Zion. The documentary went viral, and the public started protesting again. But authorities released a statement. "These are old allegations. They are legally closed." Even now, out of more than 600 victims, only 27 have officially received justice. The rest of the cases have been marked as cold. The cult's head Arvin Shreve died in prison, but his death certificate listed the cause as natural causes. No one ever demanded a post-mortem. 6 months after Mike King disappeared, a burnt car was found in a desert area in Utah. There was no body inside, but the car was registered in Mike's name. Police closed the case as an abandoned vehicle. Even today, some former members of the Zion Society remain silent. Some have changed their identities, and some are allegedly running new communities in South America. Authorities have never confirmed it, nor denied it. For America, this scandal wasn't just about a cult. It was about the dark figures hidden inside the system, who destroy innocent lives in the name of power. And the name Mike King has now become nothing more than a mystery. Is he still alive? Did he really expose the truth? Or did the system silence him forever? No one knows. Only one question remains: will justice ever be served?